Good day. Thank you for tuning in to this 2017 General Election Candidate Forum for Tumwater City Council, Position 5. The forum is presented by the League of Women Voters of Thurston County and Thurston Community Media. The League is a nonprofit organization that encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in their government. The League neither supports nor opposes candidates or parties. We are nonpartisan. The League registers new voters, studies issues, and advocates for its positions with governing bodies. Despite its name, the League is open to both men and women of age 16 and over. I'm Elliot Weinstein from the League, and I'll be moderating this forum. The candidates for Tumwater City Council Position 5 are Michael Althauser and Chelsea Rustad. For this forum, the candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement. Then I'll ask questions. The candidate will have 2 minutes for a response. Then I'll ask them questions in alternating order. The person first asked the question will have 2 minutes for a response, followed by 1 minute from the other candidates. There will be 1 minute for closing statements at the end. We'll begin with an opening statement from Michael.
Thanks. You know, I just want to start off by saying thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting us here today. I certainly appreciate all the work that the League does to increase civic participation, so thank you so much. My name is Michael Althauser. I'm a candidate for Tumwater City Council Position 5. Ultimately, I'm running because I want to work to help make Tumwater an even better place to live and to work and to raise a family. That's really what I'm all about and what I want to work on. In my private life, I work as a civil rights attorney in downtown Olympia. I provide pro bono legal services to low-income families. In terms of community experience and volunteer capacity, I've also been on the Tumwater City Planning Commission for the past couple of years. We've been tackling a lot of big issues, a lot of issues that are confronting the city of Tumwater over the next few years. We've been working on traffic mitigation on Capitol Way. If you're a resident of Tumwater, you may have noticed the repaving projects and some of the pedestrian access projects that have been done. We've also been working on things like redeveloping the Brewery District, and there's some really exciting projects happening there as well, including the new Craft District. Ultimately, you know, I think that these experiences are really will benefit me as a council member in the Tumwater City Council. I have experience advocating on behalf of our community as a community resource attorney, as well as sort of the nuts and bolts of zoning and land use and things like filling potholes. So, you know, I would really appreciate your vote and your support come November.
Chelsea, you have 2 minutes for an opening statement.
Thank you, League of Women Voters, for hosting this forum and providing this opportunity today. My name is Chelsea Rustad, and I'm running for Tumwater City Council Position 5. And I felt compelled to run for this position because it was very important to me to ensure that there would be a socialist candidate on the ballot who would ensure that people can see their values represented in a way that's not typically found in the spectrum of campaigns that are happening at the moment. Women's rights are extremely important to me. I'm passionate about the environment. I'm passionate about universal health care and the local issues facing Tumwater as well that I've learned more about ever since I moved to Tumwater in 2005. And since then, I have worked and acquired 10 years of public service between 3 different state agencies. I'm currently working at the Department of Fish and Wildlife, and so I've had incredible opportunities in this city, and I want to use the experience that I have acquired and the passion that I have for activism and for public service, and to give back to this community and to make it better and ensure that marginalized voices are represented and centered and acknowledged always. So I'm really grateful for my time here today, and I'm looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll start with our questions. Michael, you will go first and have 2 minutes for your response. What do you see as the 2 major challenges that will impact Tumwater in the next 4 years, and how do you propose to deal with them? Please be specific.
Sure. So I think I'll start by talking about housing generally. Housing is going to be a really big issue. Well, it already currently is a big issue, but it's going to become an even bigger issue for Tumwater in the next 4 years. Over the next 20 years, Tumwater's population is projected to grow by 20%. And we need to approach that growth strategically so that it doesn't end up in sprawl over all of our open space. Tumwater has about 200 acres of beautiful open space, and it would really be a shame if all of that was paved over for sprawl in order to accommodate our housing needs. On the other side of that coin, I think we also need to think about those who live without homes. In my professional practice, I work with homeless individuals on a pretty regular basis, a lot of which actually reside in Tumwater but head downtown for services. Homelessness in Tumwater is a lot different than it is in Olympia because we lack the same sort of the same sort of density, and we have a lot more open space. But that doesn't mean it's not a problem that we need to address, and we currently don't have a strategic plan for how to address homelessness. So that's one big issue I want to work on. The second is environmental sustainability and preservation. I think that there's more that we could be doing as a city to really move that objective forward. Climate change is the issue of our generation, and we really need to make sure that all of our buildings are LEED Energy certified, and we also could be doing more in terms of utilizing our resources on our tree board. The Deschutes River is really a gem for our community, and it needs to be preserved. The temperatures have been rising over recent years, and if we increase the number of trees that are along the banks there, then we'll be able to help meet our ecological objectives and our sustainability objectives by lowering the temperature there, which is better for salmon, better for the fish bank that's in the Deschutes River, and then also working to make life a little more preserved, a little better upstream as well.
Chelsea, you'll have 1 minute. Do you want me to repeat the question?
Oh, I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
So for me, I feel that the right to exist, to live well, and have a good quality of living are tied to access to good quality health care and access to good employment. And so I feel that I can work towards that issue by supporting a City Works program for guaranteed subsidized employment opportunities with priority for people who are homeless, who are low income, and are seeking employment in city limits and want to have that opportunity to beautify and enrich our own community. In addition, my other issue that is extremely important to me is protecting the environment and creating a green economy and a green city going forwards. I personally have experienced that with the installation of solar panels on my own home. Tumwater is a prime candidate for taking advantage of alternative sustainable energy sources and using government agencies to visibly fight climate change by coordinating our infrastructure towards a sustainable future.
Thank you. Now, Chelsea, you will get to answer first and have 2 minutes, and Michael will follow. Tumwater continues to experience growth. What is your vision for how Tumwater should grow?
So, as the population grows, we need to ensure that we can't expect our city officials and our population to just do more with less or do more with the same amount of resources available to them. So there needs to be scaling in terms of if there's a larger population of people being served, for instance, by our emergency services, then the fire department should be equipped accordingly to deal with that. That's one of the issues that I heard from when I spoke to the local fire department organization. And in addition, we need to ensure that we are not recklessly endangering our natural resources as we expand further with urban sprawl and the addition of development and housing throughout the city. We need to take special care to ensure that every new development effort and maintenance of existing infrastructure throughout the city is done with sustainability and long-term protections of our natural resources, clean air, clean water, and green forest availability in mind for generations to come. So that definitely needs to be the vision that we have going forward, is thinking about not just what will save money now or benefit a certain group of people now, the most wealthy or the most affluent, most privileged, but everyone throughout the city, regardless of income level, so that they have access to good natural resources and good services from the city into the future as foreseeable as we can.
Thank you. Michael, do you want me to repeat the question?
No, that's okay. I kind of touched on this a teeny bit already, but growth is a huge issue facing the city of Tumwater over the next few years. As my role on the Planning Commission, we rewrote the city's comprehensive plan, which is sort of the strategic vision that the city lays out for the next 2 decades. And like I said earlier, the city is going to grow by about 70% over the next 20 years. That amount of housing units is almost inconceivable in terms of managing growth. So really, I think that one of the tough issues that we're going to have to take a look at, and one of the tough conversations we're going to have as a community, is how are we going to answer the density question. I think we need to look at our transit spine and incentivize density where we can have alternative transportation options. For instance, along Capitol Way, where you're going to have a little bit more capacity for denser development, a little bit more mixed use, as opposed to something like neighborhood commercial, that's really where the zoning can really have the most effect. So if we have more mixed use, a little bit more density in terms of the brewery district along Capitol Way, that's really going to benefit us in the future in terms of managing growth.
Thank you. We'll move on to question 3. Michael, you're first. What are your budget priorities for Tumwater in the next 4 years, and how do you plan to balance the budget?
That's such a great question, because really, you can talk a lot about what you want to do and where your values are, but I always ask, show me your budget, show me where your values are, what are you willing to fund in order to, see those objectives, see those priorities come to life. I've talked a little bit about housing and homelessness already. That is not free, right? We're not going to be able to address homelessness without spending any money. The city doesn't have a strategic plan for how to address homelessness. One of the things that I think we should do is invest in some expertise so that we can learn more about some of the barriers that the population faces, so that we're better able to address those challenges and provide opportunity for those who might need a hand up. That's not going to be free, but I think it's an investment that's worth making. I just want to say that homelessness is also, in my opinion, a regional problem. So we need to be working with our partners in Olympia and our partners in Lacey, as well as local civic organizations, on how we're going to address that problem. In terms of budget priorities, I guess I'd also mention parks. Our parks currently have a really long maintenance backlog. There's a lot of work that has been delayed for some period of time due to inadequate parks funding. So we need to have a tough, serious conversation about investing money in our parks. I've knocked on a lot of doors in this campaign so far, and one of the top issues that I hear every time I knock on a door is, I love the parks, but this bench is falling apart, or I love the parks, but the grass hasn't been mowed in a while. So I think that we really need to take a hard look at where we're going to invest and to actually make those tough choices to invest those dollars wisely.
Thank you. Chelsea, do you want me to repeat the question, or?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
So for me, the priority with the budget is ensuring that we have adequate funding available, not just to maintain, but to expand and support the important services that the city already provides, and to think more broadly in terms of what we can do for residents of Tumwater. And the way that we'll do that is we can emulate what has been proposed in the city of Seattle, where we can look at a progressive taxation structure. We here in Tumwater have the privilege of living in the city that has the highest average income of all of Thurston County, and we need to be taking advantage of that. It's not the working class people, middle class people, who should be shouldering the majority of that burden but if we tap into the wealth that we have, we can do so much for people, and it would be much more fair, and it would take away the tax burden that sometimes pushes people into the need for those services. So we can support much more expansive homelessness programs, affordable housing, rent control, and we will do that by implementing a progressive tax structure.
Thank you. We'll move on to question 4. What is your position, Chelsea? You're going to go first, on charging developers the full cost of new public facilities, including schools, to serve their developments?
Well, I think that on a case-by-case basis, it would depend upon what kind of impacts we're looking at upon the region that is being discussed for development, and what that will entail, and what it can do for the community, the kind of jobs that will be created, but also the potential negative impacts that could also occur as a result of development if that's going to interfere with our natural resources that are available in the city. So we need to bring experts into the fold and have a cost-benefit analysis with each piece of development. And if it is a project that is going to provide new benefits and jobs and opportunities for the city, then that's something where we can incentivize that, and we could look at not necessarily expecting a developer to pay for 100% of those costs, but if there's something that, like, we already have sufficient opportunities to provide whatever that service is, if it's something that actually is looking to threaten or infringe upon protected areas and natural resources, then we need to ensure that not only are regulations being met, but that there should be an expectation that the cost is covered by the developer, because we need to be thinking in the long term and not just accommodating a situation where if they can pay for anything, no matter what it does in the long term in the city, then it happens. So that would be my approach going forward.
Michael, do you want me to repeat the question?
No, thanks. Tumwater, one of the reasons why I love living in Tumwater is because of some of the access to some of the great public resources that we have, including parks specifically. We also have a pretty good trail infrastructure that could use a little building out, but really the parks are really one of the gems of our community. And when we look at our tax base strategically in terms of what makes it up, permitting fees are a very large portion of that. Permitting fees are a pretty significant budget item in terms of having the adequate revenue to fund civic services. So it's important that growth pay for some growth, right? Like, if we're going to have a city that grows, then it's important that those fees still be part of the equation. Really, the tricky part is finding that sweet spot where the fees aren't too high to where we inhibit those, maybe denser residential facilities that we want to achieve, so that we can actually house the amount of people and accommodate for the amount of growth we want.
Thank you. Well, we're on the final question, and Michael, you get to go first. How specifically would Tumwater benefit by having you on the City Council?
I would love to have your vote and your support for Tumwater City Council, and I think that my experience sort of shows really the kind of hybrid role that I would bring forward to the council, and some of the values and priorities I would bring forward to the council. I think that my legal expertise, particularly my expertise advocating on behalf of low-income families, advocating on behalf of consumers and individuals who are seeking access to public benefits, really that sort of is half of my approach in terms of being able to provide adequate representation of some of our more vulnerable neighbors who might need a little access to opportunity, who might need a little bit of a hand up and a little bit of help in order to, establish self-responsibility. And on the other hand, I think that my experience on the Tumwater Planning Commission is equally valuable. We have meetings every other Tuesday, and I invite you to join us sometime. We dig into the nuts and bolts of zoning and land use, and it's an incredibly, incredibly fascinating discipline, and I think it's really prepared me for accessing this role. I also think I'll be able to work with the mayor and the city council once I'm elected. I'm endorsed by Mayor Pete Komet, and I'm also endorsed by 6 of the current 7 Tumwater City Council members. So I know that from day one, I'll be able to hit the ground running and be able to achieve my legislative agenda. So thank you.
Thank you. Chelsea, do you want me to repeat the question?
Oh, no, thank you.
Okay.
So I believe that I do bring unique qualities to this position which would be valuable. As I mentioned, I have 10 years of experience working in government. 9 years of that was at the Department of Revenue, 9 months at AOC, and then currently at the Department of Fish and Wildlife. I will be drawing upon a wealth of experience and a background working in government with many of the programs that are intimately connected with the way the city runs and works. In addition, I'm working with local candidates like Renata Rollins in support of her campaign, because I want to hit the ground running with like-minded candidates and elected officials so that we can have an intercity connection to get things done in the areas that we care about. I have been hitting the ground with communities such as the Just Housing organization, hitting the Olympia City Council, and making my presence known because I want them to know that I will be a trusted member of the community who will vocally and aggressively advocate for them.
Chelsea, I just need to clarify an acronym that you used for the audience. What does AOC stand for?
The AOC is the Administrative Office of the Courts.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, now we're on to our closing statements. Michael, you're going to go first. You have a minute, and then Chelsea, you will close us out with a minute.
Great. I just want to say thank you again for hosting this forum to the League of Women Voters. It's so great that this is an opportunity that's available to everyone. In terms of final thoughts, I just want to say that I greatly appreciate your vote, and that I think that my experience makes me a unique candidate for this position. But I think that no matter how you vote, you're going to end up with a great representative on the Tumwater City Council. If you'd like to learn more about my campaign, you can visit www.michaelalthauser.com. We're also on Facebook and some of the other social media sites like Twitter and stuff like that. So thank you so much.
Chelsea, let's close this out.
All right, well, thank you as well. It's been a privilege to be here and learn more about what I can do to better represent you. I've been doorbelling and doing lit drops and speaking with my neighbors in my community because I want to understand what's important to them and how I can be a better representative going into this position. There's some more information about my campaign available at my website, chelsearustad.eventfulhorizon.com, and also on my Facebook campaign page. I have been actively involved and would love to hear from residents of Tumwater so that we can have an active ongoing dialogue so that I can ensure that I'm representing the constituents to the best of my ability. So again, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for participating, both of you, in the League of Women Voters primary election forum for Tumwater City Council, Position 5. We encourage viewers to vote in the general election on or before November 7th, 2017. The League particularly thanks Thurston Community Media for their ongoing support and assistance. Good evening.